Colonization in Africa was something that Africans will never wish that it comes back again. During colonization, there are very many things that happened which messed up with the life of Africans. First of all, the moment these people came to Kenya, who are the colonialists, they eroded all the African cultures. They also ensured that the leadership in Africa was completely shut down, in that they took over the leadership and replaced the leaders that were there for Africans. Of course, those who collaborated were there with the whites, who were given a chance to lead, but still they oppressed the Africans, their fellow Africans. Now, what are other things that happened during colonization? Apart from just the replacement of the African leadership by the whites, we also had slavery, where Africans were forced to work in their lands as laborers, and they also transported to Europe and many other countries to also work as laborers. During this time, they were harshly treated. Indeed, it was a terrible experience that Africans faced at that time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to C45 TV. This is another conversation, of course, we are having with me, Abel Mukua. Now, if you've not subscribed, kindly make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment. And those who have returned for another time, kindly keep following, because we'll be uploading videos now and then. How did Africa get out of colonization? One of the things that made Africa get out of colonization is the serious rebellion that we had at that time. Africans felt like they were pressed to the corner, to an extent that they could not take it anymore. They therefore united and came up together, used the arms they had at that time to challenge the whites and drive them away from their areas. In Kenya, where I come from, we had the Mau Mau, which meant Mzungu arudi Ulaya, Mwafrika apate uhuru. That's what we call Mau Mau. In short, in English, it means that the whites to go back to Europe, and then Africans to get the freedom. Mau Mau. Make sure that you remember that word, Mau Mau. Now, today's video is going to be about colonization, and the major question here is Africa being colonized again. Keep on subscribing, liking, and kindly commenting on whatever you want us to talk about. What are the major signs that Africa is being colonized again? One, there's imposition of the Western ideas into the Africans and in the African countries through the African leaders. What do I mean by this? Recently, we had the First Lady of the United States of America who visited Kenya, and when she came, there was a controversial thing that happened with the judiciary. They passed the law to support that the LGBTQ community, the homosexuals, they have the right to register and operate circles within Kenya. That was a controversial statement, a controversial ruling that everybody was against. But it was, without any doubt, engineered by the presidency of the United States of America First Lady, Ms. Biden. That is one of the indications that Africa is being colonized again. Another sign showing that Africa is being colonized again, it is the too much loaning that is now happening from the Western and Eastern countries to Africa. Now, this is what's happening. Kenya itself has a huge loan that is owing the Chinese government. Ethiopia, Angola, Sudan, Congo, all these countries owe Chinese governments and American, France, and many other European countries loans, which they have used to carry out various projects in their respective countries. Now, these loans are so heavy in that the Africans are not easily going to pay them. Therefore, they'll be forced to bide to these powerful countries. That is a sign of colonization. Another major sign showing that Africa is being colonized again, it's the installation of leaders in African countries. The Western, the Eastern are installing their own leaders, people who can serve their interests in these nations. What does that mean? These leaders from the West, they sit with the African presidents and prime ministers who have gotten into power in a controversial way, or they have done things that are controversial to remain in power. For instance, we have countries in Africa like Rwanda and Uganda where presidents have extended their term limit so that they can be in power for longer periods. Now, despite this being unacceptable by the African people, the West themselves also, they don't support them in their own countries, but they embrace when they're done by Africans. This shows that this is a clear agreement between these leaders that they can extend their term limit so long as they serve their own interests. That is one of the major signs that Africa is being colonized again. Another major sign that we have showing that Africa is being colonized again, it is the dependency. It's the dependency of African countries and governments on foreign aid in every problem that we incur. For instance, recently we had the COVID pandemic, during this time, the African countries could not come together to develop a vaccine, despite the technology that's available, the funds, or even sourcing technology from abroad to come and help them establish their own vaccine production center. They didn't do that, and that means they had to depend on America and many other countries like Russia to develop their vaccines and then supply them to Kenya, which means we remain dependent on these countries. Therefore, we're not going to get out of their capture, meaning we are still colonized by these countries. The Western countries have also engineered disunity among African countries. The Africans have always had the interest of having this continent getting united. We had leaders like Gaddafi who championed for one Africa state, one Africa, countries coming together to form a state. Now, in this scenario, Gaddafi is no more. What does this show? The Western countries no longer want Africans to be united because they still want to exploit them. Gaddafi was killed by America during the Obama's regime. That means very well that in case any leader comes up to be powerful and wants to go against the Western by calling Africans to come together and have one president or one leader, that president will be eliminated. That means the Western countries, they still want to control Africa, meaning Africa is still being colonized by the Western and Eastern countries. The Western countries, the Eastern countries have policies that cannot allow any Africa to just get into their country. But there is a lot of ease for them to move to our countries. They can easily move from Europe, from Asia, from America, from South America, from North America. They can easily move to Africa, but moving to these countries and staying over there is not easy. There are very many procedures to be followed, meaning that we have given them powers. They can easily come to a region, do whatever they want, but they don't have that freedom to go to their countries and also stay there and do other things just like as they do. That means that they still want to use us, but they want to share what they have with us. Africa is still being colonized, and that's a major sign. Another sign showing that Africa is still being colonized is the slavery that we're experiencing up to date. The difference, the slavery that we have now and the previous one, is that right now slavery is almost voluntarily, but there's a lot of mischievous operations that we believe are also always taking place before these people become slaves. What do I mean by this? We have people moving to Asian countries to work there, to serve maybe as house girls, house boys, or maybe to serve in farms and also restaurants, drivers, and many other things. These people, for instance, to give an example, it's Saudi Arabia, where we have most of the Kenyans. Let me be specific to Kenya because this is where we've had experiences, where we have had Kenyans go there alive, healthy, to serve, to work, and earn a living, but come back to Kenya dead. Meaning that the environment they face while working in those countries is very harsh. Therefore, that means there's slavery that is going on. These people, when they leave Kenya, they are told that they have the freedom once they are there. But when they reach there, they can't even leave their houses, they can't move around, they can't interact, can't buy things, they can't call their families as often that they want, they can't take pictures, videos, they can't capture, they can't just do many things that they can do in their country. That means the environment is still harsh, only there's a difference of what used to happen then and now. Some of them have shown clips where they have been beaten, some of them, actually a close person I know was even taken to a morgue, That means that there's always slavery that is taking place despite the end of the first colonization. That shows very clearly that there's still colonization in Africa. And lastly, socially, we have also borrowed, as Africans, we've borrowed a lot from the Western and Eastern countries. The way of life, the way people dress, the way people eat, the movies they watch, the games they play, the games they watch. Africans have shifted from their ways of life, their ways of entertainment, and embraced those of the whites. My name is Abel Mukwa. That is our video there and there. Kindly make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe. Keep following for the videos I do. Thank you so much. See you next time.